Hello everyone, good evening internet. My name is Meg Williams. Welcome to my stream. Tonight we are streaming memetics. Sorry, I always get it mixed up. We are streaming tonight genetics for memetics, which is a weekly series I am doing every week at 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. And so basically what we do in this series is go over genetics in order to study and learn and talk about memetics. And when we say memetics, I think what people hear is internet memes. And that is definitely what I'm interested in. That's the reason I have this channel, to adapt memetic theory to internet memes. But as we are going to see, especially when I'm reviewing from last week, the theory of memetics is actually way bigger than internet memes themselves. And I am very interested in internet culture and interested in the way that the internet works. And I think that memetic theory, as well as other Darwinian, so to say, theories, can definitely explain how information spreads and why it spreads. One of the most interesting things about memetics for me is that it's not really concerned with the truth of a statement. It's concerned with studying the way that statement jumps from brain to brain. And that's something we're going to be talking about a lot today, is how memes jump from brain to brain, so to say, and also how they evolve and how ideas evolve and how memetics is different than other theories of culture or theories of cultural change. A big thing that memetics has to do as a new field is to really prove to people that it needs to be around. We're going to be talking a lot about Susan Blackmore tonight and her book, The Meme Machine. Very interesting book. Very important book, I think, as far as memetics goes. Some people like to say maybe a fanatical book, but fanatically Darwinian. So I don't know how you're a fanatic about science, but yeah, I'm not amongst those that think it is overreaching. I think that especially because we've had the example of internet memes to really kind of like cut our teeth on, so to say. When it comes to memetic theory, I think that there is definitely a huge future for memetics, and I think that we are here to explore it. And internet memetics are going to be a huge, huge part of that. And I don't know if you guys can see my cat right now, but he is being very, very cute. Oh, he's just on the corner of the screen there. Hello, buddy. He's really wondering what I'm doing up here. Anyway, welcome to stream. I hope everybody had a good week. I hope that everyone around you is safe and happy, or at least safe, you know. I've been reflecting a lot on our situation right now, and certainly my life has changed a lot over the last year, and in some ways very much for the better. I'd have to say I am somehow happier than I was in January of 2020. I don't know. It's been a challenge, but sometimes challenges push us to be better. Anyway, I hope that you're finding some sort of happiness in this like weird time. Society, am I right? So now it's oh, he's being so cute, guys. Look at him. He's like rolling over. He is being so cute. Oh, look at him. Okay, anyway, enough about my cat. I'd pick him up, but as you can see, this beautiful goth attire would not fare well with his orange fur. Anyway. Oh, baby. So let us get started. This is going to be a very Meg talking a lot stream and not so many videos or other multimedia experiences. So I don't know if I apologize for that, but I am just making you aware. So we're going to be talking a lot about these two books and the selfish gene theory and its extrapolant, the selfish meme theory. I invented a word there. It is what it is. So let's do a little review from last week in case there's some people here that weren't here last time or whatever. And also just to kind of like center ourselves. So last time we went over the last chapter in the first edition for this. It's not the last chapter anymore because Dawkins has added more chapters and more ideas. But the last chapter in this book is MEMES, the new replicators. And so we went over the theories contained within that chapter. And this book is generally a book on genetics and on what Dawkins calls the theory of the selfish gene. We'll talk more about that theory and about how he wishes he had put things differently and not necessarily called it the selfish gene, because it doesn't necessarily mean the gene for selfishness, which a lot of people have misread it, unfortunately, and we will get kind of into the bad rap that sociobiology unfortunately has, through no fault of its own, seeing as it is an abstract idea. But anyway, in this book, Dawkins was talking about genes for the most part, and then he wanted to suggest that there might be something on the planet that works similar to genes, but isn't exactly genes. And that thing is the meme. And basically, he argued that cultural evolution is analogous to genetic evolution, except it has a lot of differences, but it can be used as an analogy. And they're both basically conservative, and, for example, I mean small c conservative, as in they do not produce things out of nowhere. They take the elements of what was previously there and form them into new systems, which is something that we're going to be talking about a lot today. Okay, cool. So cultural transmission isn't unique to man, but it is pretty rare. Songbirds and monkeys can be said to imitate each other. And when Dawkins was talking about the meme, he was saying just as the gene should be the basic unit of evolution, the basic unit of genetics, the meme is the basic unit of imitation, the basic unit of culture. So he pointed out, especially, and this is something that Blackmore is very interested in, that we don't have to look for the biological advantages of culture because they evolve independently of the... Okay, let me put it this way. We don't have to look for the biological advantages of culture because culture doesn't have to be tied to biological advantages. Culture is tied to the advantages of culture. So, for example, it's kind of like if you know the social norms and the cultural norms of the society you're in, you're going to be more successful in that society. And that's basically what he's saying, that being successful in the society isn't necessarily tied to biological reproduction, because there are a lot of very successful people who do not reproduce. So we can detach the cultural advantages of culture from the biological advantages of culture, and that relieves us of having to find out why certain cultural practices or ideas are advantageous to biological reproduction. It takes that burden off our shoulders. We don't have to think about why certain cultural practices are advantageous biologically. They can just be advantageous for culture's sake. And so he called the new replicator and the old replicator, so to say. There are several replicators on the planet, but the one that he was mostly dealing with within this book was the replicator of DNA. And DNA replicates itself in the nucleus of the cell, but it used to just kind of like be free-floating in the primeval soup. But anyway, evolution took care of that. But the basic unit of evolution, according to Dawkins, was the gene, just as the basic unit of imitation and of culture is the meme. And he coined this term a lot of people don't know that Dawkins was the actual original coiner of the term meme, and we're going to have a Dawkins meme review later in this episode, so I think that's going to be super fun. Anyway, so examples of memes would be tunes, ideas, catchphrases, clothing fashions, ways of making pot or building arches, anything that's passed between humans through imitation. And so this sounds like really, really different than our idea of internet memes, but really the way that memes get spread all throughout the internet is because we imitate each other. And so internet memes are just an example of memes. They're basically just memes that happen to propagate themselves through the internet, and we will be talking about the special instances of those later. So one thing that is very important is that genes and memes are analogs and are both subject to universal Darwinism according to Dawkins. So that we're going to be actually exploring that idea more this week, but that's a very, very fundamental part of his theories. So essentially, he's making the argument that just as, biological units, genes, so to say, compete against each other to see who's going to be passed on, it's the same for memetics. It's the same for memetic evolution. And so one example that I really like that Dawkins puts forth in this chapter is the example of Old English or Middle English. If we read a copy of Beowulf, a very old poem, we're not going to be able to necessarily understand it, and we're probably going to need a translation or to literally learn Old English or Middle English, whichever one it is, I can't remember. But we have to learn these things even though it's the same language as the people who currently live in England, the same language. And this is something that's actually very much defined through matters of cultural identity, of national identity, etc. But the point is that someone who knew Old English could turn to his neighbor and speak to them, but if they came here, it would be very hard for them to speak to us, though we would eventually get it because there is a lot of overlap. So cultural evolution happens, as we can see, linguistic evolution occurs, and this is because all these things are subject to universal Darwinism, or so the universal Darwinists claim. I just want to put forth the idea, just so everybody knows, that a lot of the stuff that I'm saying and agreeing with, whatever, are not things that are necessarily agreed with universally. And that's just the nature of science. I really hate something that we've heard a lot during the pandemic is the phrase believe science, but belief is actually very antithetical to science, because science is about doubt, and science is about hypothesis testing, and science is about that kind of stuff. So we shouldn't really believe science. We should maybe accept science, read science, evaluate science, look at science, look at, who's telling me this, what might be their motivations, etc., etc. We might learn a little bit more so we can read studies, which is definitely something that I think people should invest their time in. But that's a subject for another day. Anyway, so that was pretty much kind of the last week's show in a nutshell. Kind of went through that rather quickly. But now we will put Dawkins aside, though we're not really putting him aside because of how much influence he hasn't had on Susan Blackmore. As you can see, Dawkins wrote the intro to this book, and it's a very engaging book. It's a very good book. I think there's some chapters that get a little tiring, and some sociobiological theories are just not my cup of tea, especially when it comes to sex and gender. But maybe we can write an updated one. Anyway, so yes, this is one of my favorite books on memes. It was written in 1999. So when she says the meme machine, she's like really literally talking about not internet memes. She is not talking about internet memes. Decidedly not talking about internet memes in this book. But that doesn't mean that it's not extremely relevant to our study of internet memes, because eventually we are really going to have to define and start studying internet memes. And unfortunately, a lot of our material will be destroyed by the internet and link decay by then, by the time we get our shit together, you know. A lot of this might be gone. R.I.P. Anyway, so yes, we're going to be going over the first couple chapters of this tonight and just having kind of a general discussion about it. If anybody has any questions at any point about terms, please speak up in the chat. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have about memetics. Anyway. So memetics as a field is still really being invented and explicated. And also, internet memes are just a small subset of memetics. And that's not something that we necessarily talk about or think about on the internet, or when we're like looking at internet culture. When we say meme, we mean internet meme a lot of the time. And I think that is something that I'm trying to kind of like break myself of. I want to say internet meme when I mean internet meme. But you will hear me say it interchangeably, and certainly in my everyday life, I'm not going around and saying internet meme instead of meme. I'm just saying meme. So anyway, you don't have to agree with all of Dawkins or Blackmore's ideas on genetics or evolution, or all of Darwin's ideas for that matter, but for memetics, it is kind of assumed as a field, as far as I can understand, that universal Darwinism is a thing. And we're going to go over exactly what universal Darwinism is, but just be aware that there are certain people, scientists, sociologists, whatever, that consider memetics to be an ultra-Darwinian field and can think that it has extrapolated too far from Darwin's theories, which they feel should only be applied to biological evolution, and that a lot of what memetics is studying could be in semiotics or other fields. But that's why we as memeticists have to make a case for this field even existing. And it is an inherently interdisciplinary field, and the Academy is shifting towards interdisciplinarity, slowly at least, and it vaguely fits under the category of the digital humanities. Though I am in a digital humanities master's program, currently on leave because of, life. And many people in that program are not interested in internet culture at all, aren't really aware of it, and are more on the data analytics and visualization side and a little less on the cultural criticism side. So it's not a field that fits perfectly, but I think that at least when we're looking at internet memes, it very much should be within digital humanities. Sorry guys, I just have to make a little room for my cat on the bed because there's a lot of stuff on there right now. Anyway, I'm back. So yes, So yes. Anyway, so we do have to do a bit of work to justify this field, but that's just the case for every new field, and we should be no exception to that, because that does push us to develop a system of, discourse, a system of praxis, etc., etc. So, for example, what techniques and ideas can we take from genetics or from other fields like computer science or discourse analysis that can be useful in this new field, that can be useful to study internet culture? And so for me, like, my main interest is definitely in internet culture, and I think that memetics is a really, really powerful tool to study that. That's why I'm learning genetics, because I want to understand what all these people are even saying about memetics so I can have my own opinion. And I hope I can bring y'all along on this journey of understanding and, hopefully have an effect on the way that y'all look at internet culture in your everyday lives. So it's a constant struggle to justify a new field. But we do have this overarching and prominent interdisciplinary field of digital humanities. So thanks to the DH community for being accepting, being aware, and being a Big Tent, which is very much how I'd have to say they see themselves. So the first chapter in the meme machine is called Strange Creatures. And that is because, as Susan Blackmore points out, it's hard to define exactly what makes humans different from the rest of the animals on this planet, but we certainly are rather different. And yes, Kai, you are a very strange creature indeed. Very strange creature indeed. But so what caused humans to be so different from other animals, and what exactly is it about humans that makes them different than other animals? And as we went over last week, one thing that makes humans so unique is definitely our ability to imitate each other. That's what leads to culture. And as we said last week, certain songbirds can be considered to have culture because the songs of these songbirds are more similar. If the birds are from similar places, then birds living in different places, their songs are more dissimilar. And so we can say that this is a type of culture. And the geographical definition, or the fact that geography affects culture, is one of the kind of like founding or principal aspects of culture and of cultural evolution, and of the overlap between cultural evolution and biological evolution. They're both very geographically determined. And so evolution can explain the life on this planet, but it can't really explain what makes humans different from animals. Yes, Kai. Cultural evolution happens at a much, much higher rate, or much more quickly, than biological evolution. And this is definitely true because biological evolution takes 1 million years to happen. Like, it actually takes 1 million years for it to happen. But cultural evolution happens much more quickly than that. And yes, that is true. And that's one reason why the observation about the link between biological advantage and cultural advantage is so important. Because the thing is that if culture had to be constant for 1 million years, which it never will be, that's the only way it could affect biological evolution, whereas culture moves much more quickly than that and has effects outside of biological evolution. So, usually when we ask what makes us different than the animals, people are like, oh, well, we're much smarter than them. But it's really hard to quantify intelligence, and especially in the context of artificial intelligence, because computers are like as smart as us, vaguely, but they still can't do certain tasks. So we can train a computer, for example, to, compete against the smartest and best, humans who are the best at chess. But teaching a computer to make a cup of tea or make a recipe even is much more difficult. Yes, and animals are way smarter at certain things than humans are. So intelligence is not really the best meter. Oh my gosh, the cat is trying to escape. One moment. Oh, my kitty. Okay. So anyway, animals are much better at certain things, and the way that we measure intelligence very much determines the scores of those intelligence tests. IQ, for example, is not even that valid, and that's the most accepted form of intelligence testing. Another answer is consciousness. That what makes us different than animals is consciousness, but like, good luck defining that one. We have been arguing for like hundreds of years over what consciousness even is. And one of the things that I really love about this book is that I think it puts forth a pretty compelling argument for what consciousness actually is, and it's a memetic argument. Susan Blackmore definitely makes the argument that we are composed of memes and that our consciousness is composed of memes. So we're getting ahead of ourselves, though. I get really excited. I get kind of a little bit ahead of myself. So anyway, it's really hard to define consciousness at all, and so it's one of those things where it's like, we don't even really know if animals are conscious or not, whether animals think that there's an I that they live in, and I think that a lot of the discussion around that is kind of curtailed because of the fact that we live in a society which has industrial farming and our lives get very complicated if animals are considered to be conscious or have consciousness. Anyway, so the essential thesis of the meme machine is that humans are unlike other animals in that they're able to imitate each other. So Susan Blackmore, no one is claiming that animals cannot imitate each other. What Susan Blackmore is claiming is that, and other memeticists are claiming, is that the main way in which animals learn is not through imitation, but one of the main ways that humans learn is through imitation, and it is this ability to imitate, this ability to learn through imitation that make humans unique. So there is classical conditioning, which is, you might think of, when two stimuli are repeatedly paired. So, for example, you these are so hard to explain, even though they're like so obvious. Essentially, it's kind of like, every time that a dog gets fed, a bell rings. And so then after that, once the bell rings, even though no food is presented, that dog will start salivating. And that's the famous experiment of Pavlov and Pavlovian learning, which is essentially classical conditioning. And there is operant conditioning, which is, it's basically when association is made between a animal's actions and their consequences. So that's how, you know, rats learn how to pull down a little switch and then some food falls on them, and they learn how to do that. And the main kind of theorist behind that was B.F. Skinner. And so then outside those, classical conditioning and operant conditioning are two ways in which animals learn. And so, for example, you know, like, oh, the kitty, he's here. For example, it's kind of like clicker training with the cat. If you click, 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 and then you give a little treat, it gives them the idea that if they perform this certain action, they're going to get a reward. And so this is how animals can learn. They're not going to like necessarily imitate you, but they are going to learn through these types of conditioning. What's unique about human learning is the fact that we can observe others doing something and then we can do it ourselves. And this comes so naturally to us that we don't really even think of it as anything that extraordinary. But think of it. If you see someone do a trick on a skateboard, right? Your brain has to do a lot of work in order for you to perform the same trick. Because the thing is, we can see someone do the trick, but that tells us nothing about what it's like to perform the trick ourselves. We have to imagine ourselves in the place of the person performing the trick and then go from there to learn it. And that's actually a very complex process. Oh, he's being so cute. Look at him back there. But anyway, that's a very complex process that takes a lot of brain power. And it's something we actually do very naturally. And so what's passed on through imitation is the meme. So when one person imitates another, something is passed on. And that something is the meme. And the thing is that meme can be passed on, and each person does it a little bit differently. So it kind of takes on this life of its own. It takes on this evolutionary life of its own. Kitty. He is definitely wanting to be on stream tonight. Usually he is hiding a little bit more, but he is about. Anyway, so evolution is, according to the selfish gene theory, best understood in terms of competition between genes. And we might look at that statement and be like, well, yeah, duh. But there has been in the past a lot of ideas about evolution that are based on the idea of individuals or genes evolving for the good of the species. And this is a teleological view. And is not a view that people who are subscribed to the selfish gene, like a teleological, like made with a purpose. Yeah, that species evolve for the good of the species is a teleological view of evolution. And this is something that's very hotly debated. This book right here that I've been reading, From Darwin to Derrida, is very much concerned with the idea of teleology, that everything's made for a purpose. But this is something that memeticists reject. And this is something that a lot of evolutionary biologists reject. That everything evolves for the good of a species or for some kind of purpose. So they replaced, God's purpose with the good of the species. And this is something that Dawkins does reject, especially as an atheist bad boy. So let's say we had a population. And in that population, there was a group of individuals who worked together. And they sacrificed some benefit for the good of the group as a whole. Well, if one of those individuals decided to benefit from the group, but make none of the sacrifices of the rest of the members of the group, this individual would be given an advantage to reproduce. And also, its offspring might adopt this strategy, which would cause a proliferation of individuals within a population that put their needs above the needs of the group. So why am I talking about this? Well, this is essentially what the selfish gene theory says, is that individuals within a group will fall into an evolutionarily stable set of behaviors. And those behaviors within the group can determine things within the group, but really, at the end of the day, it is the genes which are the things that survive the 1 million years that it takes for evolution. See, the argument is that we can't really look at groups when we're talking about evolution because they are not stable enough to have an effect on biological evolution. Just the same way that culture is not, quote unquote, stable enough to affect biological evolution, groups in the same way, which are kind of part of culture, are not stable enough to do that. Yes, we do need to return to Monk. That is very, very true. And just to clarify, when we say the selfish gene theory or the selfish gene, we're not talking about the gene for selfishness. We are not saying that we are inherently selfish beings. That is something that people have misread into the selfish gene theory and have come up with all sorts of bonkers ideas about the inherent selfishness of human beings that are just not true. And that's especially why, this idea of competition gets a bad rap. It's not. A lot of times within our society, competition in an evolutionary sense has been read as competition in a capitalist sense. And that is simply not true. Capitalism has, existed for maybe 300 years, maybe 400 years. Evolution takes 1 million years. Just saying. But anyway, so Dawkins actually said that he very much regretted characterizing, genes as selfish or saying the selfish gene. What he really wanted to say was the immortal meme. And by that, he's most likely describing the informational gene, which is actually different than the physical chemical gene. The informational gene can be passed on and might be mutated, but that's different than the actual chemicals within ourselves, which are DNA. And that's an important distinction for memetics, but we'll get more into that later. So in the selfish gene theory, genes reproduce and for its own benefit, not for the benefit of the species, but for its own benefit. And in a way, this is a kind of shorthand. When in the selfish gene or in the meme machine, we say genes want to be passed on or memes want to be copied. We're actually saying that these things reproduce for their own benefit and the benefit of nothing else. So when we say that memes want to be imitated or genes wants to be passed on, it's actual shorthand for genes that do X or memes that do X are more likely to be passed on. So that's just kind of a shorthand when we say that a meme wants to be copied. That meme doesn't really want anything, because if it wanted something, then it would be a conscious entity and we'd be in a whole mess of trouble. But essentially what we mean is that memes will reproduce if they can, genes will reproduce if they can, and ones that have certain characteristics make them more or less likely to be passed on. So I know that Kai said the gene encodes, but the phenotype is what gets selected on. That's actually not necessarily true. And because the phenotype is a result of the genotype, and the thing is that people can have the same genotype people can have a different genotype but have the same phenotype. And so essentially what Dawkins was arguing was that the phenotype was an extension of the genotype and that the main selection happened at the level of the genotype. Yeah, it's a whole debate. See, that's the thing, is that other people besides Dawkins made the argument that actually selection happens at multiple level, that it happens at the group level, that it happens at the individual level, that it happens at the genetic level. And all of these debates are like all really well and good. But on the other hand, they're not like necessarily the most relevant for memetics. And there's a lot of stuff in genetics that we can just kind of like leave be to develop our own theory of memetics. So the importance of this, the reason that I have this series is so that memeticists can understand the genetics well enough to be like, okay, well, this aspect of genetics we don't really need to worry about too much, and this other aspect of genetics is something that we can carry over into memetics as a way to look at internet culture. And so the whole big point of this is that understanding the memetics and understanding the debates in memetics, understanding the genetics and the debates in genetics is very important for memetics, because we have to understand that these people talking about genetics, it's not cut and dry. It's not a settled debate. Nothing about genetics is settled. It's a very, very new field. And so we have a new field of genetics overlaid with the new field of memetics, overlaid with the new field of internet cultural analysis. And if this sounds confusing, it is because it is. It sounds confusing because it is a wet field, so to say. That's in the sense of clay, so to say. Yeah, exactly. So there's also epigenetics. There's all these crazy things going on in genetics, and we as memeticists have to understand them enough to say, okay, this is where we can have our own field, and this is where we're going to borrow from a different field. And also we have to understand them well enough to know what is settled and what isn't, and not to just take any of these people's ideas as facts. So one of the most important things that happened in this book was Dawkins putting forth the idea of the replicator and the idea of the vehicle and making that differentiation. So when Dawkins talks about replicators, he is talking about the units that are reproducing themselves. And when he's saying that, what he means is the unit of DNA. What he does not mean by replicator is like a single human. So me as a human, humans aren't the replicator. The replicator, or the thing that's making copies of itself, is my DNA. And then he puts in the distinction of the vehicle. So when we were all like floating around in the primeval soup, like DNA was just free floating, whatever. And then we evolved cell walls. And then cells decided, hey, we're going to all get together and kind of clump and function together. And then mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell, was just a random bacteria that was just floating nearby and got roped into this whole thing. And now we have to pay taxes. So, really, it's a whole evolutionary thing. But the vehicle is my body. So when we're looking at genetics, we have the replicators, which are DNA, and then we have the vehicle, which is the entity which interacts with its environment. And so there is debate on whether or not the distinction between the replicator and the vehicle is something that is useful within memetics. I would have to say yes. I am of the opinion that they are, especially when we're talking about internet memes, which have a format, which one might call the replicator, and the iteration, which one might call the vehicle. So, for example, we have distracted boyfriend, which is, the meme where the boyfriend's walking with the girlfriend and is looking back at another girl. So that's the format, right? And that's what we might call the replicator. And then we have a single iteration of that format, which is something we might call the vehicle. But hey, that's just me. Because the vehicle is the thing that's interacting with its environment. And no one just makes a blank meme format. I mean, I guess people do, but only when they're meta talking about the meme itself. But anyway, so this is a quote from Blackmore that I really enjoyed. Dawkins suggests that wherever it arises, anywhere in the universe, all life evolves by the differential survival of replicating entities. This is the foundation for the idea of universal Darwinism, the application of Darwinian thinking way beyond the confines of biological evolution. So, universal Darwinism is the idea that we can apply Darwin's ideas to areas outside of biological evolution. So after laying out this theory, and the selfish gene theory, and after laying out these ideas of universal Darwinism, that is when Dawkins wrote the last chapter of the first edition of Selfish Gene on memes, which he dubbed the new replicator. So Dawkins claims that memes propagate themselves by jumping from brain to brain, and actually liken them to parasites interacting with their hosts. And there's also the ideas within the selfish gene, as well as in here, though she kind of contests it a little, that memes are physical structures because we think about them with our brains, which are physical objects, and because those thoughts are happening physically inside our brains, therefore those thoughts are physically manifest. But this goes into a larger debate about the physicality of thoughts, about consciousness, etc., etc. So memes really spread without any regard for whether they are true, whether they are useful, whether they are harmful. And so we see chain letters and pyramid schemes propagating themselves. We see new ways of ripping people off, and also false doctrines of religion, just like ineffective diets, etc., and even dangerous medical cures. So we've seen all of this happen within the last year when it comes to the big C. And we also saw within the presidency of Donald Trump, where he was very interested in saying things that were interesting, but not very interested in saying things that were truthful. And it didn't tend to matter whether or not something was truthful within the ecosystem of information that we have on the internet. It didn't affect whether or not that spread. And that's definitely something that has, quote unquote, blindsided. I don't think it really blindsided these big tech companies. I think they just really, were clouded by their ideals of communication, thinking that, oh, yay, everyone can communicate. And then we have people coordinating genocides on Facebook. So, yeah, fun. Love the world. And yeah, I think that, and just to quote Blackmore one more time about taking the meme's eye view and the way that we might start to think about society and culture. To start to think memetically, we have to take a giant flip in our minds, just as biologists had to do when taking on the idea of the selfish gene. Instead of thinking of our ideas as our own creations and as working for us, we have to think of them as autonomous, selfish memes working only to get themselves copied. We humans, because of our power of imitation, have become just the physical hosts needed for the memes to get around. This is how the world looks from a meme's eye view. So here she is putting forth a method of analysis where we have to stop thinking about necessarily the individual creativity, and we have to start thinking about the fact that memes want to be reproduced. And so this takes us only so far. And this is where I really like Susan Blackmore's ideas as a basis for memetic praxis, but I don't think they go far enough, because she says that there are certain things that are outside her purview about why we find things compelling that are more in psychology. But I say, hey, why can't we think about these things? A lot of the papers that I've seen on memetics and on internet culture really focus on what happens after a format has been established. But the thing is that if we're talking about evolution, like, formats tend to evolve and interact with each other in these interesting ways. And so we can't just look at formats that have been established. We also have to retroactively find how those formats were established if we are truly going to understand memetics, if we're truly going to understand internet culture. But okay, so we're gonna do a Richard Dawkins meme review for the second half of this stream. But first, I need to go to the bathroom. So please enjoy this lo-fi hip-hop beats to chill / study to while I do that. have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the streams. Anyway, so what's the point of all this? I completely lost my place. So we have to start taking the memes eye view, which is looking at memes. You know, we have two different ways we can look at memes. We can look at memes within individual creativity, and we can look at memes within the memes eye view, so to say. And so when we're looking at the evolution of formats, for example, and how internet communities, as well as just like community aspects in general, discourse in general creates them, we have that one aspect. And then when we're looking at the other aspect, we're looking at, how do established formats get passed on and how do they evolve? And so, this is very useful in a lot of case studies of internet memes. For example, if you have Water Guy and Fire Guy, which is one of my favorite examples. If we have these closed systems, such as closed forums like MeIRL, memes tend to evolve very quickly and maybe not be intelligible for people who do not participate within those communities. And so it really is about community. It's about community spread. It's about the culture of specific communities within the internet. And that is the praxis of memetics. And it's something that's still definitely defining itself, and it's something that we can use to look at these different cultures. So next, we're going on to the next chapter of the meme machine, which is called, what is it called? Universal Darwinism. Yeah. So once again, we're exploring the ideas of universal Darwinism in this second half of the stream. So Dawkins argued that, So Darwin, I always get Dawkins and Darwin so mixed up. I always say the wrong one. So Darwin, oh my God, I made the same mistake. Wow. Okay. Darwin argued that living creatures vary, and that sometimes there's a struggle to survive on this planet, and that because creatures have different characteristics, some of them are more adept at surviving than others, and the most adept creatures are going to be able to reproduce more readily and more fecundly, and therefore are going to be able to pass on these characteristics that they have. So, as Susan Blackmore says, we can put this into Dawkins's language. So if there is a replicator that makes imperfect copies of itself, only some of which survive, then evolution must occur. So if we have a meme format that gets copied and put into variations by people, and some of those memes are dank and then some of the memes are not, then the dankest memes are going to get spread and are going to have further influence on meme culture that pushes it forward. And so the philosopher Daniel Dennett, who wrote the intro to this book, but this is by David Haig, another philosopher, described something called an evolutionary algorithm. And so algorithms are something that we're like pretty comfortable with as people in the 21st century, but essentially they are just a list of rules that you need to complete a task. And in this case, that task happens to be evolution. So one thing about algorithms is that they are substrate neutral. And so that means that a single algorithm can run on a number of materials. For example, you can get the same, if you're doing a calculation on an abacus or a calculator or a computer, it doesn't matter. If you're doing it by hand, you're still going to get the same result because you're using the same mathematical algorithm in order to do the process. So in Darwin's original argument, the substrate was living creatures. But Dennett points out that his logic could apply to all systems that include heredity, variation, and selection. And so when we're looking at internet memes, we can say that they have heredity because, we can copy the format, we can save a meme we see and then edit it into our own thing. And we can say it has variation because one thing about meme format is that everybody can make like their own version. And then selection because we have the public on the internet deciding what is and is not dank, and then passing on what is dank and deleting or ignoring what is not dank. So we have everything we need for universal Darwinism. So when the evolutionary algorithm gets going, we can be sure that design will happen. Even though there's no one designing, design still occurs. We cannot predict exactly what this design will be as a result of chaos theory, and especially if there's like small differences at the beginning, those get amplified through the repetition of an algorithm. So can we say that there is necessarily progress in this evolution? Not necessarily, not in the teleological sense, not in the sense that everything quote unquote has a purpose. That's not something that genetics or memetics necessarily takes as an assumption. That's an assumption that happens in the religious sense a lot of the times, that everything has a purpose, but it's not something that necessarily is important or accurate within science. So there's no master plan, there's no grand design necessary for life to get more and more complex. This is what Dawkins describes as climbing Mount Improbable, where as this algorithm works, more and more improbable characteristics get pushed into a single organism because of the differential survival of competing organisms within a system. So, and this growth in complexity and change is not always steady. And what happens a lot within biological evolution is that not a lot of changes happen for a long time, and then suddenly, as conditions change, a lot of biological evolution tends to happen. So all this creativity really depends on the power of the replicator to reproduce. So in the case of genetics, we have the power of the gene to reproduce itself within the nucleus, and then within memetics, we have the imitation of each other's behavior. And then within internet memetics, we have the ability to save an image and then edit it on our computers and then re-upload it to the internet. Or in the case of like challenges, just to like imitate a behavior and then record it and then put it on the internet. So challenges are also memes, because everything is a meme. JK, not everything's a meme. JK. Your immediate perceptions are definitely not a meme. So if I see the color red, it is not a meme. But the word for the color red is a meme because, yeah, dude, like what if the red I see is actually your blue? We have no way of like knowing, And I mean, I'm doing like this stoner voice for this, but this is literally in Nietzsche, in truth and lying in a non-moral sense, like whatever. Anyway, so all this creativity really depends on the ability for the replicator to replicate itself. And a replicator will replicate itself so long as it has the machinery to do so. And according to this quote from Blackmore, replicators have no foresight. They do not look ahead or have plans or schemes in mind. They just get copied. In the process, some do better than others. Some obliterate others. And it is this evolutionary, and it is in this way that this evolutionary design comes about. So if memes are replicators and can sustain an evolutionary process, we should be able to build a theory of memetics on that basis. So what are the criteria for being a replicator, and does a meme fit that description? So obviously Susan Blackmore thinks so, and maybe perhaps I think so. But in order to, so we need certain things. We need variation, we need selection, and we need heredity. So we can say that genes reproduce themselves because the DNA reproduces itself in the nuclei of the cell. We can say that memes reproduce themselves in that humans are very adept and very much all the time imitate each other. Then we have memes have variation the same way that genetics do and genes do, because the way that we get evolution is actually through, like, quote unquote errors in DNA replicating itself, because sometimes there are mutations, and sometimes those mutations actually end up being a good thing, and they end up making a certain thing that has a certain genotype be able to survive within an environment better. So we need variation, which means that when memes are passed on, that they aren't perfect copies of themselves. And in fact, within internet memes, it's a given that they are going to be different. And then we also need selection. So some memes have to not be passed on because we don't find them compelling. And I would have to say that on the internet, this happens a lot of the time, where we see a meme and we're not very moved by it, so we don't share it. And so we can only share so many memes, though I guess we don't really, I personally could share more memes. Anybody who follows my Instagram, which is memeprofmeg, same as my Twitch channel, know that, I share a lot of memes that I could share more, but the thing is, I don't want to share memes that are not dank, because then people are going to judge me for it. And so it really becomes a matter of identity in a weird way. So this formation of identity is one way that memes are selected, but there's also the selection of memes where we literally can't have more than a certain number of thoughts in the day just because of time. And so we only have the time to take in certain memes, we only have the time to reproduce certain memes. And then finally we have heredity. And within genetics, that's basically the ability of a living thing to pass on its characteristics to its offspring. And within memetics, that is just, the fact that if we make too many variations to a meme, it's not going to be recognizable as that meme. And does that become not the meme? That's a very good question for memetics. But anyway, so parts of the meme are retained, and those are the things that have to be retained for us to call it an imitation. So where do memes come from? Where do meme formats on the internet come from? Well, they come from previous ideas that we've had, and they come from previous meme formats. And memes really come through recombination of themselves. And for example, if a meme has words in it or has a snow clone, then those words are part of the meme and are memes in themselves. They're something that we imitated. So as you can see, there's always going to be the level of memetic analysis and then the way that we apply that to our study of internet culture. So there are reasons why some memes succeed and some fail. They can tell us something about our society and about the way in which people, perceive and think, and also our aggregate, the importance that we each assign to a certain meme creates a sort of aggregate importance. And that aggregate importance can theoretically be measured over the internet and be seen over the internet. And so when we study memes, we can really study things about ourselves. But essentially, memes do compete for attention, and those that can't get it just simply perish. So there's certain characteristics of the way that we perceive things that make certain memes more successful than others. And one that I keep liking to go back to is the term meme and the term culturgen. So they both describe the same thing. They were both made around the same time by sociobiologists. But the term meme won out over the term culturgen. And the study of why that is super interesting to me. This is a really, really good question from Pasta Cheesecake. Thank you. Do you think that we can use Darwinian fitness to predict internet meme popularity? I mean, it's a super interesting question, but measuring Darwinian fitness is something that we're used to doing after the fact. So when we're looking at genetics, we are looking at the last 1 million years of results from reproduction. And so when we're looking at predicting a meme's popularity, I would have to say, instead of using the more Darwinian framework, which tends to be retrospective, we might look for how well that particular meme fits in with the cultural environment that it's in. How well users of that environment, or how well people within that environment, will react to it, and predicting that and looking at that, I think, is a little bit of a more useful framework than Darwinian fitness. Because I think that, especially, it's a very interesting question though. I mean, this is just kind of like my first impression, but thank you so much for the question, just because the thing is that this is something that is definitely being decided within memetics and is definitely up for debate. But I would have to say that on my impression of genetics, memetics, and Darwin so far, one of the issues with the Darwinian way of approaching things is, as I said before, we might look at a meme's evolution or popularity once the meme format has been established. But what we have to do to get a meme format established is something that is not necessarily, like, this prediction is not necessarily something that's within Darwin's concepts, because Darwinism is very much a retrospective endeavor as opposed to a predictive endeavor. But if we're looking at universal Darwinism, that's when these possibilities for prediction can maybe come up. If we understand ideas of universal Darwinism well enough, maybe we can predict. But I'd have to say, meme formats are something that are very decided on collectively. So it's very hard to create a format, and it's very interesting to think about whether that's something that can be done intentionally. And if we think about it, the people, this is how memes can be used for evil, because what if brands started inventing meme formats? That would really be a dark day. But yeah, memes do not have to be exactly like genes, and we don't have to look to Darwin for all of our memetic theory. Genes are actually an example of replicators, and so are memes. So they're both examples of things that evolve, and they're both examples of things that reproduce themselves. That makes them more subject to universal Darwinism, and there might be some overlap, but there can be a lot of things that apply to genes that don't necessarily apply to memes, and that doesn't mean that our genetic theories are necessarily invalid or that our memetic theories are necessarily invalid. Yes, no problem, pasta cheesecake. So any analogies between memes and genes are just that. There are figurative analogies. Instead, we, as I was saying, should look at them as two examples of replicators which are subject to universal Darwinism. So there was the psychologist, Donald Campbell, who pointed this out. And to quote from Blackmore, genes are instructions for making proteins stored in the cells of the body and passed on in reproduction. Their competition drives the evolution of the biological world. Memes are instructions for carrying out behavior stored in brains or other objects and passed on by imitation. Their competition drives the evolution of the mind. Both genes and memes are replicators and must obey the general principles of evolutionary change. In that sense, they are the same. Beyond that, they may be, and indeed are, very, very different. They are related only by analogy. So, this is really important because we can't look at genetics and then just copy word for word and then say, oh, okay, this is memetics because we, replaced every time it said gene with meme. No, that's not going to work for us. It just won't. It won't work. And what we really have to do is start to understand the ways in which heredity, variation, and what was the other one? Oh my God, selection take place within memetic evolution. So we have to really be inventive here, and we also need to be bold, and we need to say, yes, memetics needs to exist, and here's why. And there's a lot of debate about how we should categorize meme formats, etc., etc. But this is a debate that we can be in. It's a really exciting time, honestly, and there's a lot of things to be decided. It is definitely a very exciting time, and especially because our lives are so in the internet. I was a thoroughly online person before the pandemic hit, and then I feel like maybe I've gotten a little bit more online, but I feel like everyone around me has become way more online. And we are really living in the world of the memes now. So memetics as a field really has to prove to the world that it deserves to be around. People like Daniel Dennett and Susan Blackmore have given us a lot of theory, but we really need to prove that this theory is useful for looking at the world. I think Blackmore had just done this pretty effectively in her book, along with other theorists. I personally buy it. That doesn't mean you have to buy it. Always be skeptical, which is one of the main points that Blackmore as well as Dawkins would definitely tell you. What I think memetics really has come up with is an accepted methodology for studying these things, especially on the internet. I've personally been studying genetics to try to figure out what we can borrow from them. I think that the phylogenetic tree, for example, could be useful for internet memes and for studying internet culture. And next week we're going to get more into the idea of the phylogenetic tree, and I'll perhaps give a few examples. I also think we can borrow a lot from linguistics, computational linguistics, as well as artificial intelligence, because internet memes, especially, you know, for example, object labeling memes, have a definite structure that we can start to trace. And this is because, you know, when a memer makes a meme, it has to be accepted within a certain format or within a certain discourse in order for it to be spread and in order for it to be popular. And so, yeah, I mean, memetics is a super exciting field. I really love the fact that it's so new. I love the fact that it's so interdisciplinary. I think that we need to be talking more about Darwin in our English classes, and that it's definitely something to be looked into. And so, yeah, a lot of people aren't really like familiar with the fact that Richard Dawkins even came up with the word meme. And so it's really important to understand that when we say internet meme, when we say meme, we generally mean internet meme, and that the theory of memetics is actually much larger than that. And it's a theory that really has to be explicated still, and it's a theory that really needs a lot of fleshing out at this point, and that's something we can participate in, which is super exciting for me personally. But yeah, now's the time for our meme review, and I have found some really great memes about Richard Dawkins. And I thought that'd be a really great way to continue this stream. But yeah, so here we have Richard. Oh, look at him. He invented memes and then he became one. R.I.P. Yeah, we don't really connect too much Richard Dawkins with the idea of internet meme, and that's, you know, kind of rather unfortunate. He has commented some on internet memes, but, you know, F in the chat for Richard Dawkins. And yeah, so this is a classic meme. I was into memes before it went mainstream, and we know that Richard Dawkins is original because he is wearing hipster glasses. So this meme was passed on because it was culturally... Oh, meme stream! I love it before it went meme stream. Love it! But anyway, so... we understand this meme because of his thick hipster glasses. So that's what makes it intelligible to us. And also our propensity or habit of reading these types of memes. And this meme is very much descended from like an advice animal meme, which has the setup here and then the punchline on the bottom in the bottom text area. So let's see what we get next. We put the inventor of memetics into a meme so you can meme while you meme. Wow. He loves it. So, yeah, this really demonstrates the recursive nature of memes, which is something I'm definitely going to be getting into once we've kind of established our framework here. So, yeah, we heard you like memes, so we put a meme on your meme. Anyway. Yes, this is true. Memes were a mistake. Return to Monk. Someone decided that we were going to have agriculture about like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, and now I have to pay taxes, and I am very, very upset by this. And this is, okay, so the reason that this meme made it onto the slideshow is because it references kind of the genre of internet quotes, which are very ridiculous, and it also references the anime was a mistake meme. And this is a fake quote, actually, from Anime Was a Mistake, which was something that people attributed to Hayao Miyazaki, who made like Princess Mononoke, etc., etc. And so people love to say blank was a mistake. And in this case, we have Dawkins saying memes were a mistake. Of course, the irony of this is that memes had always existed, but he was just the one to give it a name. So, what you gonna do about it? Meme? You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. So, in this case, this is a reference to The Princess Bride. And so we have, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means, which is a reference to The Princess Bride. And in this case, we have Dawkins saying it. So this is a comment on the fact that the definition of internet meme is actually very different from the definition of meme. And so we have Dawkins saying, oh, you're using that word wrong because meme means something bigger than internet meme. Okay. This is essentially just like kind of a copy of that one. Yes, I invented the word meme, and it doesn't mean what you think it means. Well, too effing bad, Richard Dawkins. Words are gonna mean whatever the flip we want it. That's memes, man. Get over it. Okay. Nobody knows what the F a meme is anymore. That's because of evolution. That's because of cultural evolution. Because we say meme when we mean internet meme, and no one can do anything about it because the internet reigns supreme. I am dropping bars on this stream. What the fuck? Okay, anyway. I created the term meme to describe the power of ideas and how they evolve. You bastardo turned it into a penguin who can't talk to girls. So this is referencing Socially Awkward Penguin. How far memes have fallen. But Richard Dawkins should thank the internet for popularizing his term, because really the internet made it popular and like whatever, dude. So Socially Awkward Penguin, for people who are wondering, let us get over there and show. Socially Awkward Penguin. So for the Zoomers in the chat who are not around for Socially Awkward Penguin and the Trove, you wave back. They weren't waving at you. Pretend to adjust your hair. Wow. Roommate has guests hanging out in the kitchen for hours. Starve. Okay, so essentially, this is what we're referencing, the Socially Awkward Penguin. So we have this grand theory of memes, and you, on the internet, turned it in to a socially awkward penguin. R.I.P. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, good guy Richard Dawkins creates memes and doesn't sue 9gag. So, 9gag, if y'all don't know, is a place where internet humor goes to die. JK, sort of. So, 9gag is just a site where a lot of very digested memes tend to end up. Yeah, dude, having to explain Advice Animal memes to Zoomers is really, really, really difficult because it's like hard to explain why these things are so rigid and what they could even have meant. And I mean, I think that advice animals were also from a part of the internet or a time in the internet where people just like didn't have the same access they have to photo editing and video editing software as we do today. But yeah, so we're saying that Richard Dawkins is a good guy. And that's another advice animal meme, actually, is good guy. Oh my God. Zoomers in the chat are going to be very, very lost. 1 minute. It's from Good Guy Steve. Yeah, so Good Guy Steve was another advice animal meme, and I know he's not an animal, but like advice animals are not necessarily always animals. It was just this style of meme that was like very heavily mascot memes. So you had Scumbag Steve. Oh, it was Scumbag Steve and Good Guy Greg. That's what it was, okay? So essentially one genre of like memes way back in the 2010s was the advice animal meme. And the advice animal meme was a genre of meme that like generally kind of propagated itself through these mascots like the socially awkward penguin or good guy Greg versus scumbag Steve. Yeah, I know 2011 is calling for sure. So yeah, it's really funny how like Dawkins is just in all these old memes because I think that the internet kind of like moved on. It was just like, okay, we're staying meme now. We're not gonna question it anymore because it's just like so accepted. But yeah, so we have good guy Richard Dawkins creates a meme and doesn't sue 9gags. Yeah, totally. This is the science of memes. So yeah, here we have I don't really understand this meme actually. I don't know what they're referencing. So he invented memes, quote unquote, in 1972. I thought this book was published in 1976, but maybe he just like, you know, came up with it before then. But he can no longer post them to Our Atheism. Was Richard Dawkins banned from Our Atheism? Jeez Louise. But yeah, this is the science of memes. And we have gone over a lot about how memetics is something that is different than genetics, but both subject to the same universal Darwinism, which was the concept that Dawkins is definitely a proponent of and definitely was a proponent of in this book, and something that very much influenced this book right here by Susan Blackmore, The Meme Machine. So yeah, it is pretty plausible as a cultural evolution theory, but I'm not really sure if someone can enlighten me on this particular meme. I love this meme. It's just dang, 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 dang. The dankest meme survives. So with internet memes, we have this thing called dang. And so the word dang, actually, we can see a memetic evolution of this word within internet culture. So the original term dank means like a dank cellar. Like there's a cellar. Yeah, exactly. Survival of the dankest. But like there's a dank cellar. And so in that cellar, the air is very moist and very like, you know, you can smell it. You can smell the dankness, and that's what it means. And so dankness has had a lot of definitions on the internet. And when I taught a class on memetics at Hunter College in 2018, I called it Meme as Internet Discourse, a Theory of Dankness. And so what we were trying to figure out is what made a meme dank. And so the original theory that came off a lot from Reddit and 4chan was that a meme was dank when it had gone through the internet so much and that it got certain dank iterations. And dank iterations in the original 4chan sense of the word were iterations that were offensive, essentially. And yeah, so we can see PewDiePie using the word this way on a lot of meme reviews from a few years ago. And then it just became a general word for good on the internet. It's very interesting how this evolved. But yeah, here we just have Richard Dawkins just saying dank, 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 dank. Yeah, exactly. It's like a semantic drift. Semantic drift. So this idea of semantics and about words changing their meanings is something that is very much looked at in memetics, and it's something that has also occurred with the word memetics. And as we said before, the word meme is actually a very good meme. So introduces the concept of memes into the scientific world, becomes a meme himself. So this is the internet having a little fun with the original inventor of the word meme. So it's this recursive impulse we have on the internet, because so much of technology is recursive and algorithms are recursive, and so much about computer science is recursive, that we also have this recursive impulse within internet culture. And so within this meme, we have something going on, and that is pixelization, and that is the loss of information. And the thing is that when a meme is saved on someone's computer, when someone sees a meme on the internet, they might screenshot it, they might save it on their computer, and something called JPEG degradation happens, where the computer saves a lot of the information that's within that image, but is not always able to save all of it. And that results in JPEG degradation, and it also results in pixelation. And as we can see, the creator of this meme signaled that Richard Dawkins has been digested through the internet, through the pixelation of the image. So part of memification is this JPEG degradation, and we see this in deep fried memes. So here we have a deep fried Dawkins. So yes, still with the advice animal type of format. So here we have a meme that says, to Richard Dawkins, a brilliant man, a kind man, an atheist, and wait for it, the creator of the word of the meme. This meme is honestly so freaking cheesy, and I pretty much included it for that reason, because it's just so cheesy. Like, I know we're using impact font, but who the flip is putting it in green? And so, yeah, we have this cheesy ass Leonardo DiCaprio thing going on. Anyway, so I like this because I like this meme. We've already seen an iteration of it. And see, this is the funny part, because the thing is that within meme culture, within internet culture, we like to think that like every meme is unique or like whatever. But as we saw with like the Bernie meme, there were tons of memers and creators who made this same exact meme with just Bernie in it. And so really it's about what formats are available, what recombinations can happen, and what kind of creativity people can get up to. But honestly, we have to admit that there's no real original ideas left in the world. And I just thought I'd reshare this one to keep you guys on your feet, and also to point out his great tie. The sun causes cancer, there must be no God. So this is another advice animal meme, as we can see with his scumbag Steve hat. And I think this one is kind of making a play on one of his arguments against God, because Richard Dawkins was and is a very famous proponent of atheism, and a lot of these memeticists are. It's not something that like Susan Blackmore is super interested in anymore, because they kind of just wanted to say like, oh, religion is a meme, and because it's a meme, it's like useless and fake. Well, guess what? Everything is useless and fake. So like, whatever. But so this is essentially a meme arguing against teleological reasoning. I can't pronounce any words, by the way. Okay, calling memes memes is a meme. So it is. Okay, so a meme is a unit of imitation, right? And so, according to Dawkins, according to Blackmore, according to whomever, a meme is a unit of imitation. So when we call a meme, we are imitating a meme, right? So it is a meme that we call something a meme. And it's just like this recursive, weird loop that we're in. Yeah, exactly. It is a good meme. So as I was talking before in the stream, there was actually a term called culturgen, which described the same phenomena of memes. And that term is not something that we use. No one goes around talking about culturgens. Everyone is talking about memes. And that is because there were certain things about the word meme that made it more appealing than the word culturgen. First of all, the word culturgen doesn't rhyme with anything, right? Meme rhymes with gene, so that means that we can say memeticist, geneticist, meme pool, gene pool, etc. And any place that we can say gene, we can also say meme. And also it's a monosyllabic word, which just, I think, makes it easier to remember. And it's also interesting. It's a very interesting word. So yeah, calling memes is a meme. So yeah, it's like this whole thing where we get into this loop of discourse about memes and memetics. So this is a funny meme. This is another advice animal memes. I don't know why all the Richard Dawkins memes I could find were like from advice animal era. I think it's because like people used to actually talk about the fact that he invented the term meme. And then he kind of got in less favor on the internet just because like people got tired of these like reasonablist, centrist, like atheist people like Sam Harris and whatever. Because honestly, they can be kind of anti-religion and ignorant, and there's actually literal factual inaccuracies in this book regarding religion. So it kind of got out of favor where people just like ran with the term meme but didn't really want to look at who invented it. And so this is kind of a funny meme because the thing is that it's like this is the same argument where it's like, oh well, if you're intolerant of intolerance, then you're just as bad. Ooh, which is like not a very good argument and honestly just leads to fascism, so whatever. But so yeah, I like this meme because it also is like memecenter.com. And this is the type of thing that people who create deep fried memes or post ironic memes are gonna insert within their memes to signal that what they're doing is ironic. But this is not an ironic meme, but like I enjoyed ironically. So this is a great Richard Dawkins quote. This is a classic advice animal meme format and background. Science is interesting, and if you don't agree, you can fuck off. And what this actually comes from is this clip right here. Wait. Oh, it's in the wrong one. Okay, that's fine. One moment. Go in there. Oh, I just have to do a new window capture. Okay, so here we are. I love this one. I'm going to mute myself and hopefully I remember to turn my...
I gratefully accept the rebuke. Just one anecdote to show that I'm not the worst in this thing. A former and highly successful editor of New Scientist magazine, who actually built up New Scientist to great new heights, was asked, "What is your philosophy at New Scientist?" And he said, "Our philosophy at New Scientist is this: science is interesting, and if you don't agree, you can fuck off."
always forget. I mean, you did end up. I always do this. I have to put like a sticky note or something. But the point is, yes, if science is interesting, and if you don't agree, you can fuck off. We get into some super nerdy stuff on this stream, and if you don't think it's interesting, well, just find a better stream. Find a stream with someone playing a vidya, you know? And we're going to be over here talking about memetics and genetics. So yeah, science is interesting, and if you don't agree, you can fuck off. So yeah, this is a great meme, a great advice animal meme. And the thing about advice animal memes is that the speech is attributed to the person in the center. And that's something that we really take for granted. And there's a lot about the way that we decode images that makes it so that we recognize who is speaking in this case. So yeah, oh my God, I always forget to unmute. It is so embarrassing. Okay, cool. Next meme. Oh yeah, okay, so we're back at the beginning. I love it. I love it so much. This is a great meme. But yeah, so this is going to be an ongoing series about genetics and memetics, because as memeticists and as people studying internet culture, it is so important that we understand where the word meme comes from, and also how a meme is different than an internet meme. And that we make this distinction, because things that are going to be true of memes are, things that are going to be true of internet memes are not going to be true of all memes. And things that are true of a lot of memes might not be true of internet memes. So it's very important that we understand where this word comes from, and that we understand the genetics enough to know that a lot of the things within genetics actually aren't settled and are hotly debated. And as a result of these things being hotly debated, there's not things that we have to necessarily accept within memetics. And we also have to remember that memes are an example of something that is subject to universal Darwinism, but they are not like just an analogy for genes, and we're not going to say that like genes are going to function exactly the same way as memes, or that memes going to function the same way as genes. And so that's just a very important distinction there that we really have to keep in mind. And so I stream every Saturday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. And you can also follow me on Instagram at MEMEProfMeg. That's MEMEPROF Meg. That's me. And yeah, I share a lot of memes, obviously, and I hope you follow me on there. And yeah, it's a very exciting field. Memetics is like a very exciting field, especially because it is so wide open. And I've read you can find some articles on memes on like JSTOR and stuff like that. But what really disappoints me about them a lot of the times is that they don't really look about the way that formats evolve, because that seems to be beyond their purview or their interests. And I'm really interested personally in the reasons that memes do get popular. Not necessarily for like predictive purposes, but for purposes of studying our society and just for studying our values within our society. And that's something that we definitely really need to be looking for, and things that are very intensely interesting to me. But yeah, so I like this book. Very good books. And I'm also going to be covering in the future Darwin to Derrida, as well as Magic and Loss by Virginia Heffernan, which is about the troubles we might come across as internet archivists, and the way that we think of the internet as something that is completely preserved, but really it's not, and we have to do our best to preserve it. So I'm just going to give a time now for any last questions or things like that. I like this from the Cyrus OG. Do you think a musical meme, for example, may give rise to the behavior of composition, improvisation, and performance in music? that is a really interesting question. That's an extremely interesting question. And I think that, yes, I want to say yes. One meme that that Richard Dawkins actually talks a lot about is the meme of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. So when Dawkins is talking about Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, he says that he asked the question, is the symphony the entire is the meme of the symphony the entire thing, or is there a separate meme for dun 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 dun, wait, I can't even, oh my god, da 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 da, that's like a meme in itself, because that is something that is so repeated within the world. So yeah, if we have a musical meme and we kind of have that da 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 da, oh my god, I'm so tone deaf. Oh my god, I'm so fucking tone deaf. Anyway, da 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 da. So then if we have someone that like swings that beat like da 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 da, so if we have someone who comes along and swings that melody, for example, then that is a behavior of improvisation and performance. So if we have the original meme, which could either be that segment of the symphony that everybody knows or the entire symphony, then we have people who learn that symphony and then kind of take it into themselves and then perform in a different way or perform a variation on that theme. Then yeah, I would have to say that this idea of improvisation and performance is very much something that does happen within music. Yeah, so yeah, when we have imitation, especially within jazz, like I don't have too much experience with jazz. I'm a fan of jazz. I at one point knew jazz violin. And so there's certain techniques that we do imitate that can be said to be memes or cultural practices. And so the mimetic analysis of music is definitely something that like maybe I haven't given my time to, but it's definitely something that can be done where we analyze the way in which imitation of each other spreads and the way that imitation changes music and invents new description of music as well as new styles. Yeah, so I see TikTok coming up in the chat. So that's an interesting thing where, the music on TikTok, people use the same sound and then kind of put their own meaning on it. And a lot of times the sound is not necessarily like remixed or anything, but people give it new meaning. And so we kind of have this complex interplay between media formats, and that's definitely something that the internet has facilitated, where these different formats and these different memes in these different formats are actually interacting and influencing each other. And so the idea of interdisciplinarity or the idea of, multimedia art is very relevant for art on the internet as well as for art analysis on the internet. And so the way that we interpret things and then imitate them is definitely a site of invention, of mimetic invention. And so it's very interesting that we can see the mimetic evolution resulting from this mimetic invention, because we have the way things are passed on, which might be like, I don't know, the fact that you can use someone else's sound on TikTok, so that's like a form of heredity. And then we have variation in that everybody, has their own way of doing a TikTok dance or of participating within that conversation. And then we have people doing variation within the conversation with techniques that humans use as a general way within their conversations. Because like conversational play is a huge thing within our conversations. We love things that rhyme. We love things that sound good together. And these things rhyming, these things sounding good together leads to mimetic evolution. And a phrase or word having a more pleasing sound, more easy to remember, etc., makes that meme or that term more likely to get repeated and leads to its success. And over time, these memeplexes start to form, where certain memes get along better when they're paired with other memes. For example, as we were saying on stream last time, that for example, the meme for fire and brimstone gets along well with the meme for the savior, because who's going to save you from fire and brimstone? The savior. So I see from the Cyrus OG, would rap music be an example? An example of what? I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a delay between what I say and what I see in the chat. So I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but yeah, the thing is about memetics is that it can actually be applied to like so many things. So you can look at the memetics of politics, you can look at the memetics of rap music, you could look at the memetics of like symphonies. And when we're talking about internet memetics, that's a specific subfield of the general memetic analysis. So a lot of things can be examples of memes, and that's what Richard Dawkins intended with the original term. But it's the internet specifically, and when we use it to talk about internet culture, that we generally get the normal sense of the term. So whenever you read the term meme, think internet meme, and know that the term meme is actually more general than the way that we use it. But yeah, you could do a memetic analysis of rap music. You could do a memetic analysis of why mumble rap got popular, with people just like copying each other's styles. It's really funny where people get mad, oh, you stole my rapping style, or you stole my graphic design style, or you stole my artistic style. That's just how culture works. We're always copying each other. And this idea of originality is really just, a lot of culture is very much about the remixing of formats, the remixing of ideas, and what we can create out of what we already have. But yes, thank you so much to everybody who came to this stream. We've definitely had a really awesome discussion in the chat going the entire time, and I have very much appreciated that. And yeah, so I stream every Wednesday and Saturday. Wait, it's gonna be Wednesday and Sunday. I changed my schedule. Oh my god, I've been saying it wrong this whole stream. Oh my god. Okay, so I'm gonna be Wednesday and Sunday, and it's gonna be memetics for genetics, which is what that's what this program has been. On Saturdays, I might do like a meme deep dive. So if you have any ideas for memes that you want to see on the meme deep dive, just let me know. We did a great section on Wojak a couple weeks ago, and I'm very much looking forward to our next meme deep dive. So yeah, I'm going to wrap up this stream here, but I'm just going to give it a minute or so more for any kind of questions that people have had. I've had some really great questions in the chat so far today. Awkwardly sips water. Oh, I do have this music on. But anyway, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you want more information on memes. Thank you so much for everyone who came. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. I keep thinking it's Saturday because that's generally when I stream, but I will see you on this Sunday and this this show will be back at the same time next week. So thank you so much for tuning in. I very, very much appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Stay safe. Try to find a little joy in this weird world we're in. And